On a quiet Sunday morning in September 1982, a 12-year-old boy named Johnny Gosch left his home in a peaceful suburb of Des Moines, Iowa. His mission was simple: to deliver newspapers to the neighbors along his route. Johnny was an ordinary boy with a bright smile and a strong sense of responsibility. But on that day, he would vanish without a trace, sparking one of the most chilling missing person cases in American history. Johnny had been delivering newspapers for the Des Moines Register for several months. Normally, his father would accompany him, or at least help pack the papers. But on September 5, 1982, Johnny went alone. Witnesses later reported seeing him walking down the street with his newspaper wagon. Some even mentioned a man sitting in a blue car who had spoken to Johnny. But no one could have predicted what would happen next. By mid-morning, Johnny's bike and newspaper wagon were found abandoned a block away from his route. There was no sign of a struggle, no blood, and no indication of what had happened to the young boy. His parents, Noreen and John Gosch, immediately contacted the police, but they were told to wait 72 hours before starting any official search. The authorities believed Johnny had run away, a tragic but not uncommon explanation for missing children at the time. Noreen Gosch refused to accept this. She took matters into her own hands, organizing neighborhood searches and distributing flyers. Her determination turned her into a leading advocate for missing children, raising awareness about the dangers they face and the failures of the system meant to protect them. Despite numerous witness reports, including sightings of a mysterious blue Ford Fairmont and a man asking for directions near the time of Johnny's disappearance, the police dismissed many of these tips. The lack of urgency and the absence of an Amber Alert, which would only be introduced years later, hampered the investigation from the start. Years passed, and the mystery deepened. In 1984, another young paperboy named Eugene Martin disappeared under eerily similar circumstances, again in Des Moines. Like Johnny, Eugene vanished without a trace, and the police once again struggled to find answers. Noreen's belief grew stronger that Johnny had been taken by a pedophile ring operating in the shadows. She even claimed that 10 years after his disappearance, Johnny came to her in the dead of night. He was terrified but alive, she said. According to her, he told her he had escaped his captors but feared for her safety if the truth came out. The FBI denied the visit, and many labeled Noreen delusional. But to others, her story was a chilling glimpse into a dark conspiracy. In the 1990s, a man named Paul Bonacci came forward claiming he had been involved in Johnny's abduction as part of a wider sex trafficking operation that included influential politicians and military officials. Bonacci described Johnny's unique birthmark and scars in detail, lending credibility to his claims. Noreen supported Bonacci and even testified before Congress, pushing for greater awareness and justice. Rumors swirled around MKUltra, the CIA's infamous mind control program, suggesting that Johnny and other children were victims of sinister government experiments. Whether true or not, these stories fueled public fear and mistrust. Then, in 2006, Noreen received an envelope containing disturbing photos of boys bound and gagged. One of them looked hauntingly like Johnny. She insisted that the case should be reopened, but the police and FBI dismissed the evidence as unrelated. Johnny Gosch's fate remains unknown. His body was never found, and no one was ever charged. The case stands as a grim reminder of how a child can disappear without a trace, and how justice can remain elusive. Was Johnny taken by a random kidnapper? Was he part of something far darker and more sinister? The truth may never come to light, but his story continues to haunt those who seek answers. In a dishonest world, the monsters we fear often hide behind suits and silence. Paul Bonacci had been in and out of juvenile detention for years. Diagnosed with multiple personality disorder, he was easy to dismiss. But then he said something that caught Noreen Gosch's attention. In 1992, Bonacci claimed he had been one of the boys involved in the kidnapping of Johnny Gosch. He said he had been forced to help lure Johnny into a car that day in 1982. According to Bonacci, a man had approached Johnny under the pretense of asking for directions, then grabbed him. Bonacci described the street, the car, and even a scar Johnny had. Small, hidden, but real. Details that had never been made public. Noreen met with Bonacci in person. When she asked him to describe Johnny's birthmark, he did. When she asked about a secret code word Johnny only used with her, Bonacci got it right. Could it be true? He told her Johnny had been taken as part of a sex trafficking ring, a network of powerful men who used boys for parties, photos, and worse. Johnny was drugged, threatened, and moved between locations. Bonacci claimed Johnny had tried to escape several times, but always got caught. According to him, Johnny eventually stopped fighting. He was alive, Bonacci said, but deeply traumatized. He'd been trained not to speak, not to run, not to feel. That year, Noreen went public with what she had heard. She believed Bonacci. The FBI didn't. Authorities said there was no solid proof, just the words of a mentally ill man with a criminal record. But Noreen was convinced her son hadn't been killed. He was alive, and more children were in danger. The Franklin scandal, which had begun as a financial fraud case in Omaha, Nebraska, soon morphed into something far darker. As investigators dug deeper, witnesses and victims began to speak about a hidden network, a system of child exploitation tied to money, politics, and disturbing ritualistic abuse. Paul Bonacci's story seemed to align with these revelations. He claimed the children weren't just trafficked for sex, but were sometimes involved in bizarre ceremonies, events that sounded almost cult-like. Drugs, masks, candles, powerful people, and children forced to perform horrific acts. Some dismissed these stories as the fantasies of a damaged mind, but others, especially the parents of missing children, couldn't shake the feeling that something awful was being hidden. Bonacci named names, places, dates. One of the most chilling claims, he said the perpetrators used techniques similar to government's mind control experiments. Psychological programming meant to fragment a child's identity and obedience. He referenced Project MK Ultra, a real CIA program that had been exposed years earlier. Could that type of psychological manipulation have been repurposed for something even more sinister? It sounded like fiction, but the victims were real. In 1993, Noreen Dash testified before the U.S. Senate's Human Resources and Intergovernmental Affairs Subcommittee. She told them about her son's disappearance, about Bonacci's confession, and about the powerful people she believed were involved. She urged the government to take the matter seriously. But again, there were no arrests. In 1999, Johnny Gosch filed a civil lawsuit against Bonacci's former abuser, a man named Lawrence E. King, not to be confused with the CNN host, who had run the Franklin Credit Union. The court ruled in her favor. Bonacci was awarded $1 million. Still, there was no criminal investigation. In 2006, a strange package appeared on Johnny Gosch's doorstep. Inside was a photograph. It showed 3 boys bound and gagged. One of them looked just like Johnny. The photo appeared to be old, taken in the 1980s. The boys were clearly terrified, tied up on a dirty bed. Noreen was horrified. She turned the photo over to the authorities. The West Des Moines police said it was unlikely the boy was Johnny. But Noreen insisted. The eyes, the mark on his cheek, the expression. She believed it was him. Around the same time, something even stranger happened. Noreen claimed that years earlier, in the middle of the night, Johnny had come to her home. He was in his late 20s. He didn't stay long. He told her not to call the police, that he couldn't risk being caught. He confirmed many of Bonacci's claims. Then he was gone. To this day, no one has verified that visit. Noreen says it happened. Authorities say there's no proof. But Noreen's story never changed. Over the years, more people came forward, not just about Johnny, but about other missing boys, strange photos, suspicious organizations. Each time, the pattern was the same: shocking claims, little evidence, and no action. Johnny Gosch became more than a missing child. He became a symbol of fear, of corruption, and of unanswered questions. To this day, Johnny Gosch would be in his 50s. His case remains officially unsolved. No arrests, no confirmed sightings, just a trail of unanswered questions, conspiracy, and haunting silence. But for his disappearance, things changed. Because of Johnny, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children was created in 1984. His mother, Noreen, fought to change laws that required police to wait 72 hours before declaring a child missing. Thanks to her, immediate action became the standard. In 2006, a documentary titled "Who Took Johnny" reignited public interest. It laid it all out: the kidnapping, the evidence, the conspiracy theories, and the people who tried to speak out. The film didn't solve the case, but it asked the question millions had avoided. What if the system meant to protect children was part of the danger? To this day, theories swirl online. That Johnny was part of a larger trafficking ring. That he was taken to silence his family. That he escaped but can never return. That people in power are still hiding the truth. But for Noreen, the only truth that matters is this: her son was taken, and the people responsible have never faced justice. Johnny's face was one of the first to appear on a milk carton. Decades later, he's still missing, but never forgotten. And for many, the question remains: did Johnny Gosch ever really escape? Or is he still out there, watching, waiting, unheard?